She met him briefly one night.
He was a manipulator and completely felt that he was above the law.
But little did she know, that wouldn't be the last she'd see of him.
Wasn't no doubt in my mind that Kevin Gary was crazy. I was scared of what he might do to her if he had a chance.
This is Harvette Williams' story, when a chance meeting sparks a delusional love affair.
I am Dr. Michelle Ward. I'm a criminal psychologist, and I was stalked. And I'm not alone. Over 3 million people are stalked every year in this country. Many survive the ordeal, others do not. These are their terrifying stories.
He had been in my house. He had licked the mirror in my master bathroom. I didn't know how far he would take it. I mean, it's just sheer terror. I grew up in Detroit. Lived here all my life. You know, attended Detroit Public Schools here. And I went to beauty school. And I have 2 daughters.
For the past 25 years, Harvette Williams has been working as a hairdresser.
I work at a salon, and I love my job.
When I first met Harvette, I would define her as like a fine bottle of champagne, full of bubbles.
I was very much outgoing, enjoyed living, enjoyed people.
On April 27th, 2003, Harvette attends a networking dinner, hoping to attract new clients.
I ended up going to this event for NAACP. It was great, meeting people, talking with them.
Harvette gives her business card to dozens of people, including 35-year-old Kevin Gary.
He didn't stick out to me in no way. I didn't give him a second thought.
To Harvette's surprise, Kevin Gary calls her the very next day. But right away, it's clear that he's looking for more than a haircut.
And that was when he said, you know, I want to be with you. I want to date you. I said, no, I'm not interested. And it was basically, from that point on, Kevin Gary started calling. It just escalated. It went from 0 to 60.
Goodbye.
Like in that one day, 40 times a day.
She told me that this guy was calling her. She said, I couldn't tell you what he looked like or nothing. But he telling me he in love with me, he want us to be in a relationship. I said, he a fool.
Yeah, I don't know if I was scared at that point. I just knew that I wanted it to stop.
These phone calls might just seem like a nuisance or just really annoying, but in my experience with predatory criminals, they're actually a warning sign. I fear that Harvette's well-ordered life is about to turn into a nightmare.
And soon, the harassment goes beyond phone calls.
I worked at a salon, and he would drive past the salon.
Dealing with someone like that.
And I would see him, he would always drive different cars. That was the first time that I was actually scared. My clients were very scared for me at that point because they're looking like, oh my God, this guy, he's gonna be a problem. One of my clients says, this is stalking. And I'm like, is what?
I think Harvette's probably very shocked to realize that she has become the victim of a stalker. I would categorize Kevin Gary as a love-obsessional stalker, meaning he's had no previous relationship with Harvette. It's very rare to have a stalker like this. In Kevin Gary's mind, something like a switch flipped when he met Harvette. And he fell in love, head over heels, and the delusions began.
When Kevin's efforts failed to win Harvette's affection, he turns to even more desperate measures.
I'm like, he's out here, he's here right now. I think I was in shock. I'm thinking to myself, this cannot be real. It couldn't be real.
For weeks, Kevin Gary has been harassing 34-year-old Harvette Williams, a hairdresser and mother of two, calling her relentlessly and lurking outside the salon where she works. And now, he's showing up outside her house.
It was really creepy. He was following me home, placing items on my car outside my house. Like I would come out to go to work, and he would like put a newspaper and a bottle of water on my car.
Kevin Gary's not actually threatening Harvette at this time, but in his twisted mind, he actually believes he's showing her two things. One, that he has access to her, and two, that he's going to take such good care of her, that he's going to be this great boyfriend. So as warped as it might seem, this is Kevin's way of expressing his love he's feeling for Harvette.
I say, if he's doing this, no telling what he would do for her. And I feared for her physical being. I say, Harvette, call the police, show them this.
The police get there, they're like, well, he's gone now, there's nothing we could do. Well, call us when he come back. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Everywhere I go, he's there.
The problem is that in many cases, the best that the police can do is respond after the fact. And the person who is doing the stalking will do what they do, and then they will disappear.
I've seen this all too many times. It's so difficult for the police to get involved. They can't really arrest him because he hasn't established a pattern of stalking behavior, because stalking is so hard to prove. Stalkers are often very cunning, so it's incredibly hard to apprehend them or catch them in the act or even prove they were involved in the act.
I was so angry with the police department. And I told Harvette, what, they waiting to find you in the alley with your throat cut?
Now, Kevin Gary has been stalking Harvette for 4 months. Detectives finally advise Harvette to get a PPO, or personal protection order.
This personal protection order is my last resort. I really need him to just leave me alone at this point.
Harvette Williams obtained a personal protection order on Mr. Gary. Once that was served, it was a court order for him not to have any contact with her whatsoever.
But even legal action doesn't stop Kevin Gary from haunting Harvette.
And he just kept coming, calling, following me home, calling. He followed me to work. Nothing changed. It's almost like being backed up to a wall, and you're at the wall and they're like right here. I can't go anywhere else.
I think that Kevin is trying to show her he's not going to give up, and it strikes a lot of fear in me because we have no idea how far he'll take this.
Mr. Gary violated the PPO almost immediately. I believe it was the very next day. It's not uncommon for people to violate a personal protection order, but to do it so quickly, it was a little unusual, and I did question his mental state.
Police track down Kevin Gary and arrest him for violating the PPO.
He went to jail. That was the most peace I had in months, because it was no phone calls. It wasn't, it was just normal.
But Harvette's peace doesn't last. She learns that as a first-time stalking offender, Kevin Gary's sentence is just 21 days.
She said, oh no, this is not good enough.
Harvette and her friends are absolutely right to be worried. In my experience, 21 days in jail is not going to do anything to deter Kevin from continuing to stalk Harvette. If anything, it just gives him some time to keep focusing on Harvette and planning his next move.
And as the countdown to Kevin's release begins, Harvette fears that her very life may be in danger.
I was like, this man is crazy. I was scared of what he might do to her physically if he had a chance to get her by herself.
I knew he was getting out. It was scary. I didn't know how far he would take it.
Kevin Gary has just been released after serving 21 days in jail for violating the personal protection order Harvette Williams filed against him.
As soon as he got out, he sent a huge box with gifts, champagne flutes, gifts with my kids' names attached to them. I'm thinking to myself, this cannot be real. And it was just awful.
She was so frantic. She said, he ain't been out of jail 24 hours. He ain't sent me a package. I say, what? I couldn't believe it. I was like, he crazy. This man is crazy.
When Kevin Gary sent Harvette the package, he actually, in his deluded mind, believes that he is showing her what a great dad he's going to be to her children, what a great husband he can be. Kevin has a very distorted view on what love is and how one should express it. Although Kevin hasn't been dangerous yet, Harvette's right to be afraid.
That was the defining point for me, looking at the safety of your children. It's no longer just you. It's like the first time I looked and said, it's my kids too.
Harvette is now terrified that Kevin might come after her children. She calls the police about the package, hoping that they would trace it to Kevin.
We went out and we did investigate this matter, and we were unable to prove that it was Mr. Gary.
It's frustrating. It was very frustrating. It's like, what else do you want me to give you? Now I'm to the point that I'm crying. Literally, I'm crying because I'm just so frustrated. I really physically would just be sick. Just to listen to my voicemails, I was like throwing up almost every day. I think I was like 97 pounds.
She can wear my granddaughter's clothes. She can wear an 8-year-old child's clothes. This is just how this man worked on her.
I want to be just locked in all the time. Just sheer hell for me. I mean, things that you just take for granted. Just going to get ice cream with your kids, or just going and just doing basic stuff. You're not doing that anymore.
She's the victim, and she's locked up. And he's the criminal, and he's not locked up. What's wrong with this picture?
Harvette's going through a type of psychological rape at this time. Her life is being infiltrated by this man. She feels violated constantly. She feels afraid, and she feels afraid for her children. And that has to be the worst part of it all.
Harvette lives in constant fear that Kevin will appear at any moment. Finally, she decides to hire bodyguard Dale Brown and his team for around-the-clock protection.
She had a stalker who was very aggressive. He was a manipulator and completely felt that he was above the law. We had to implement extreme countermeasures, which made him believe that there was no option or opportunity to continue to aggress on her. We would escort our children to school, escort her to church, and different social events.
Now I have 4 guys, no less than 4 guys, guard me all the time. And then you get people that's looking at you like...
At first, Harvette is embarrassed by all the attention, but the bodyguards seem to be working. The stalking suddenly stops.
It was relief, a little, because it was like I wasn't seeing him. It was 6 months of no phone calls, but it was always in the back of my head is what he's doing.
Even though Kevin seems to have disappeared, Harvette can't shake the nagging feeling that something is still not right.
She said, Celeste, she said, I went home last night and my apartment was hot. She said, I know I'm, frazzled. She said, but I know I didn't cut the heat on.
Jesus, you know how you come back, the lights are on, and you're like, did I leave this light on? once I was paying attention to it, I'm like, I know I didn't leave my heat on 90. I know that I didn't.
And it isn't long before Harvette discovers a sure sign that she's not going crazy. As she's brushing her teeth in the bathroom, something catches her eye.
When I seen that, I think I was in shock. I was just in disbelief, really. Disbelief. I almost fainted. I knew then that he had been in my house.
Harvette Williams, a Detroit resident and mother of two, has just made a horrifying discovery. On her bathroom mirror, she spotted what appears to be a human lick mark. And she is certain Kevin Gary did it.
If you lick something, you're gonna leave a tongue print. And that's what it was. He had licked the mirror in my master bathroom. When I seen that lick mark, I almost fainted. It was just terrible because I knew then that he had been in my house doing this stuff. He was the one who turned the heat on 90.
And then she was like, "You've been in my apartment." How did he get in your apartment?
He paid the maintenance guy $500 for a key to my house.
I fear that Kevin Gary is going into her apartment in preparation. He's practicing to do something far more dangerous. Because he doesn't have perspective and he doesn't have boundaries, he is escalating, he's getting worse, and he has less and less control of himself.
Harvette calls 911, and the police launch an investigation.
Harvette Williams stated that Mr. Gary had broken into her apartment and had put marks on her bathroom mirror. But we were unable to prove it was Mr. Gary.
Harvette remains sure it was Kevin. And she is so terrified of what he will do next that she immediately makes plans to move out.
I was moving in 2 days. I packed the whole apartment up and was out of here. That was just hard because my daughter, I had to explain to her, and she's like kindergarten. Well, why are we moving?
Harvette's absolutely right to be afraid of Kevin Gary. We have no idea what he's capable of, and it seems like nothing's going to stop him. There's not much that Harvette can do to protect herself.
You better not play this message to the police.
And it's hard to tie Kevin Gary to these harassing behaviors.
Harvette realizes that the only way law enforcement can help her is if she can prove that Kevin is violating the PPO by continuing to contact her.
And she finally realized, aha, I can record him, and then the police will know for sure who's doing this.
And I bought a speakerphone and a cassette tape player. And I set the tape player up by the phone and put the speakerphone so that I could kind of record him that way. The very next night, he did call.
Why do you keep continuing to call me? I told you I didn't want you to call me ever. Leave me alone.
And I want to marry you. I want to spend my life with you. The woman I chose to be.
I'm the woman you chose to start.
Harvette immediately brings the recording to investigators. And it's finally the evidence they need to arrest Kevin on a charge that could send him to prison. Prosecutors charge him with aggravated stalking, a felony in Michigan.
I was an Oakland County assistant prosecutor in charge of the case. I had to prove to the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Kevin Gary was fixated on Harvette, and he wasn't going to let her go.
Stop playing on. You getting this message?
That tape was everything, and there's no way he was going to get over that tape.
The trial date is set.
That week before we were to go to trial, I was a complete mess. It was like, okay, I'm gonna have to testify, I'm gonna have to see him.
But in a shocking twist, on the day before the trial, Kevin Gary enters a plea of no contest. He is sentenced to 5 years in prison.
The judge realized how serious the situation was and gave him a very harsh sentence.
5 years might not seem harsh to you and me, but compared to other states, Michigan's 5-year maximum sentence for stalking is pretty high. I'm sure for Harvette, 5 years is not nearly long enough, considering how many years she spent under his thumb.
So when he finally did go to prison, that was just the best day.
It was like, okay, he gone to jail. Time to have a little party. Got a party. They clank, clank, he locked up.
Despite deep emotional scars, Harvette is determined to move on with her life.
It's always in the back of my mind, did I do something to deserve it? Was I too friendly with a person? It's an uphill battle that I'm every day fighting and trying to make better.
Kevin Gary served 4 years of his sentence and was paroled on June 11, 2010. Thanks to a recent Michigan law championed by Harvette and Governor Jennifer Granholm, all stalking parolees must be outfitted with a GPS tracking device. If Kevin goes near Harvette's home or work, police will be notified. So far, the GPS is working. Harvette has not seen or heard from Kevin since his release.